Hi, folks. I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Calvert alongside the pastor, the padre, the good father. You know him, you love him. It's time once again for the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. As I have said many times before, both Father Joe Grimaldi and I are proud customers of Star Lincoln, where we got the star treatment. And it's time to talk a little bit more about two things. Number one, check out the pre-owned vehicles on display right now at Star Lincoln, 12 Mile Road, just east of Southfield in beautiful Southfield. Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln. And how about the Nautilus? The Nautilus has quickly become Lincoln's most popular SUV. The quickest way to shop Star Lincoln is by going online, starlincoln.com. Shop Star Express. Browse online, reach out when you're ready, then pick up or have your new Star Lincoln delivered right to your front door. Experience the ultimate in luxury with the stunning lineup of Star Lincoln SUVs, starting with the full-size Comfort and Extreme Lincoln Navigator, the 2021 Lincoln Aviator. Visit starlincoln.com. Star Lincoln, home of the star treatment. How is life as the pastor of Sacred Heart, located here in Auburn Hills, Michigan?
I think things are going very well. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah?
So far, the people are enjoying it. We've had a couple of good celebrations besides the weekends. But just this week, you had All Saints' Day on Monday, and then on Tuesday we had All Souls' Day. And we had a very nice remembrance of the faithful departed and paid tribute by having people bring pictures. And, you know, we had the little vigil lights and things of this sort on tables, and it worked out very well. It was a nice mass, and people participated. We even had an organist for the occasion, so things worked out well. Things are going okay. I mean,
I want to stop for a second. So was it an emotional mass with people holding on to pictures or?
Oh, not holding on. We had tables where they placed them with the candles on the tables.
But did you notice that people were unusually emotional that day or not?
I wouldn't say emotional, but certainly reverent.
You did not go through a manifest and list names or any of that?
We listed the names of those who have died within the year.
I was curious because of the fact that I had mentioned in our last podcast that I lost a very dear friend. It was not expected at all. He was a good man. He was 70 years of age, but highly emotional at the church, very emotional at the cemetery because I was a pallbearer, and I hadn't done one of those processions in a long time where you drive 15, 20 miles an hour. Long story short, Irish fellow, so bagpipes way off in the distance. And then Danny Boy being sung. Well, that's when the tear ducts kind of
open up.
Yeah, they take over. They decided. But so that's why I was curious about that. Interesting time, you know, and we've been talking about this over the past few weeks. And I told you that I've absolutely fallen in love with the Gospels of St. Luke because of the fact, for whatever reason, it's very easy for me to read, understand, and digest. The ending of today's Gospel, and we are talking about November the 3rd, 2021, Wednesday, the 31st week in Ordinary Time, Luke chapter 14, verse 33. Every one of you who does not renounce all of his possessions cannot be my disciple. You take it. What the heck does that mean?
You know, I think there are other Gospels, Matthew, for example, as well as Luke. There's a story, for example, of a young man approaches Jesus. And the question is, what is the greatest commandment? And of course, Jesus says, you have to love your God with all your heart, soul, mind. In other words, totally. And Jesus adds something else when he says, you have to love your neighbor as yourself. In the Old Testament, in the book of Deuteronomy, you do have to love your God with all your mind, your heart, your strength, and so on. But it doesn't have the second part. Well, you see, Jesus sees it as a coin, two sides of a coin. And you need both sides to complete the coin. So you have the love of God and the love of neighbor are two sides of the one coin. And so that's what he tells us. So when this young man approaches Jesus and says, "What can I do to enter into the kingdom of heaven?" And Jesus asks him, "Have you kept the commandments?" He says, "Yes, I've kept them ever since I was knee-high." And Jesus says, "That's good." And so the young man looks at him and says, "Well, I've kept the commandments, so what you say is true." Then Jesus looks at him and says, "You are very near to the kingdom of heaven." And the young man left Jesus, in a very sad state, almost in tears. Now, what does that all mean? It relates to what you just heard from the Gospel of Luke, or what you just read from the Gospel of Luke, where every one of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot enter heaven. Well, it's the same idea. So what is the Lord getting at? I can't help but think that the Lord wants us to be happy here on this earth. One of the things that even religious life teaches you, that everything we have, in quotes, and I say this in quotes, is on loan. It's for my use. It's not me. No, it's for my use. So, for example, a computer that I own the computer so that I could do the work I want to do and like to do and I'm good at doing. But it's a computer, okay? We don't have to accumulate more and more stuff. And I use stuff in quotes as well. Mm-hmm. And so this applies, too, to the man that has all the money he needs and all the money that he can be happy with, but always striving to make more money. If that's what we're doing, then there's something wrong with our sense of we want more of the thing as opposed to having the things that we need to get along. Now, I'm not saying we have to live a Spartan life. We need to enjoy what we have on this earth. Now, the purpose of what we have is determined by us. Obviously, a man that has a lot of money, it's the use of that money that makes a difference. If it is used just to accumulate so that you have this, that, and the other thing, you could say, well, I've got 6 houses, I've got, and so on and so forth. That makes no sense. However, it's okay to own a house, and maybe a house where you could go and enjoy with your family and so on. That's not a problem. I'm not speaking about a particular item. What I'm speaking about is accumulation of things. If I don't know what today's worth is. People make $1 million today easily, and maybe that's enough, maybe it isn't, I don't know. But if the people just have as their goal to keep on making more and more money without using it properly, well, okay, that's what the Lord is speaking about. So, there's a spirit of poverty as opposed to poverty. Poverty means you are in need. The spirit of poverty is that you use the things you have without owning them, as it were. They're there for my use. We're blessed because we have them. But to try to accumulate without good reason makes no sense.
How about someone who doesn't go into business expecting to be very successful, turns out to be very successful, has the ability to do several things that are, to him, maybe, I don't want to use the word selfish, but he wants to have a big home, he wants to have a pool, he wants to have land, wants to have a place in Florida, but also wants to give back as best he can. Take care of those that aren't as fortunate as he is or she is, but because of their hard work early on, they're successful. They have money, and they like being able to do the things that they do on both sides of that coin that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think what we have to look at is this. Do I love money more than I love the people around me?
Mm-hmm.
It's a simple question, but the answer is not easy, because what you just said certainly doesn't make it easy, because maybe having 6 homes can make that person happy, but does it make sense when you have your next door neighbor, as it were, who doesn't even have a hut? Okay?
Right.
So there's something wrong with that kind of thinking. And I'm not against capitalism. That's not what I'm speaking. But I am speaking about if money becomes so important that it takes over your love of others, your love of neighbor, then there's something wrong with that. There was a time when religious orders, when their vow of poverty was so misinterpreted. Well, the vow of poverty did not mean that they did not have a computer, well, in those days, a typewriter, so that they could do their work as teachers or whatever the case might be. However, what the vow of poverty meant that you don't make these your possession that takes over your time and energy over the love of the people around you. So I think what you mentioned was that he wanted this man that you speak about, no one in particular, but he has, I don't know how many homes, but he also wants to give. But wanting to give is not the same as giving, okay? There's a lot of people that talk a lot, but the thing is getting down to business and doing it is another story. And so I think we have to take that into consideration as well. Are they giving the money that they have to help others as well? I really would love to give some money. And, you know, people say, oh, what a saint he is. Well, saying that is not the act of doing it. And I think that's the difference. You're walking a fine line. Let me put it this way.
Yeah, you are. Here's the reason why. You just made me think about people saying, oh, he's a saint. Not necessarily. You don't know the backstory behind the saint. No one does. In other words, there are people that love their money, and they're caregivers as well. They will present a lot of money, give a lot of money to a church, to a charity, whatever. But aside from that, they still love the money, like making the money, so that they can do expensive things. And sometimes they're not always the best of decisions. Let us leave it at that. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do, but I don't know how we could get into their minds and try to figure out their motivation.
They feel they can mitigate it by...
Mitigate what now, please?
No, maybe whatever it is they're doing that shouldn't necessarily be as, how delicately can I put this, a proper way to live your life. Oh, I don't know. Joe, you know what I'm talking about. I'm inferring perhaps even infidelity. Maybe they think they can mitigate that by giving back large sums of money to a church or to a charity. How about that?
Well, then they're not considering all the actions that they're doing, okay? If they were considering their actions, first of all, that means they're not being faithful to their wives, huh? Or a woman not being faithful to the husband, okay?
Yes.
If that's the case, that's wrong. It doesn't matter how much money you give away, that's wrong. It's hard to mix up the two, huh? So what I'm getting at is this. You're not supposed to live like the homeless person in the streets. That's not what the Lord is saying. The Lord's saying you make enough money, you live comfortably, And then you also want to make sure you use your money properly, whatever it is, whether it's $1 million or whether it's $50 million or $1 billion. There are some people that are like that. So you have to make sure that you take care of the rest of society, because the money is given to you for a reason. When I say given, we have the money for a reason. Because let's face it, we know that the smartest businessman in the world can be the unluckiest business person.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes they're lucky.
Right.
So now you want to apportion what you have so that others may benefit, not yourself only. Now, if you do all of this money stuff just to make money and no other reason, then I think that's what the Lord is saying.
And there are people out there as well who have a simple idea, and all of a sudden it's turned into a fabulous need, want, necessity in an industry, and boom, the most unusual person on the planet all of a sudden is a millionaire.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No. I'm just saying that person, they have passion for the fact that they come from nothing. I think if you come from nothing to something, you feel you did it your way, you worked hard, you had some fortune along the way, but at the same time, you totally get the fact that what you've achieved is special and you should share.
There's nothing wrong with having money.
Okay.
It's what you do with your money that makes it right or wrong. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
Matter of fact, the person that has no money could sin as well if they're not considering their neighbor. So it doesn't matter how much money you have. What matters is what are you doing with it.
We're running short on time. I would like to continue it at some point. So you're saying no matter what, unequivocally, it's okay to be a financial achiever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how much money you have.
Okay.
It's what you do with it that makes a difference.
That's where I'm confused. When you say it's what you do with it that matters, what should they do with it?
I don't know what they should do with it, but let's put it this way. If money takes over the love of family, the love of wife, the love of children, the love of neighbor, it's wrong. Then they should get rid of it all. Okay?
All right.
I'm exaggerating, but you know what I'm saying.
So if you're Ebenezer Scrooge in your nightcap and your gown, counting that day's assets, don't do that.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. I mean, you could have millions of dollars and you could have only enough to get along today. It's not that difficult. It's not an exaggerated thing. It's very simple, okay? You have money. You apportion a certain amount of it to live. You, your family, you apportion a certain amount of it in helping others, whether it be through organizations that help others directly or whether you help others directly yourself. It's a matter of using what you have in the proper way. We were given these talents, and if they do bring in money, terrific. And so now we have to decide what we're going to do with it. You don't want to make money so that you could give to your favorite church so that it could make up for you messing around with other women, or that's not right. It doesn't matter. That's not giving money away in the right way.
Well, I agree with that, and that's a topic for another podcast. And you know me, I need to ask questions.
That's good.
You do a great job of answering my questions. So will you answer this question for me? Did you come prepared to say a prayer?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I've been doing a lot of thinking about the pandemic. Is it over or isn't it? People are still suffering. People are suffering because of what happens in the aftermath. There are people that are still fighting the shots, if you want. There's a lot of confusion among us. So I'm going to ask the Lord to give us the wisdom to direct our actions in the proper way. Amen. God bless you all.
And you as well, Father.
This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe Podcast.
We'd like to remind you to share the Father Joe podcast with your friends. You can reach Father Joe at frjoepodcast@gmail.com, and you can find us on Facebook or say, Alexa, play the Father Joe podcast. We look forward to seeing you next time.